And the types of things it can help with, so it's pretty varied really. So, but to give you an example of some of the most common things it supports, I'd say it's financial support. So if you have been off work through injury or illness and you've, say, got behind on your rent, or you need a bit of help with utility bills or, say, food vouchers, that financial support is the most common cause that it supports. But it will also help with things like funeral care costs, white and brown goods.
So bringing it forward to 2026, so it's been established for 26 years, give or take. Is it still the same rules in terms of who it supports, or has it been broadened in line with where the industry has moved and changed over the years?
So it's a really straightforward process. So I'm the kind of middleman really. So you'd send in an application form to me or get in touch with me and I send you an application form. Fill out the application form, which comes back to me. Then I will work with you to sort of build a claim. So it might be that there's a bit of supporting evidence that I need a bit of help with. So I will kind of, stay in close touch with you to help you every step of the way.
There was somebody who actually, the mobility school, had come from the Benevolent Fund. And I nearly run me over twice on it. Not intentionally. He was trying to get hold of me to thank me for even though it's actually nothing to do with me in that sense. But it was really nice it was just nice to see that.
Thanks to the members for their subscriptions, and we get donations from some of the specialist groups, and also fundraising from functions such as the Northern Dinner Dance and things like that. So a big thank you to the RHA membership for supporting us.
It must be quite a challenging job being a trustee, because how do you judge the claims when they're coming? Also, is there a criteria? So how do you ensure, not fairness because you're all fair-minded people, but how do you ensure that you can be happy that it's had a fair judgment by the committee? Hello and welcome to the next edition of Roadway the podcast. My name is Richard Smith, and today I'm joined by two guests that are going to talk about what I describe as one of the RHA's best kept secrets, but becoming less and less so, which is the RHA Benevolent Fund. A very important part of what we do relating to the industry. People spend a lot of time focusing on the day-to-day compliance, the pressures of the industry, but what about the people that work in the industry, past and present? People that sometimes need support and a little bit of help, as we all do. So I'm delighted this afternoon to be joined by Jim French and Kelly, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves in a moment. But before we start, I would just like to remind everybody that benevolence is a good thing to do. And there is a stigma around benevolence to some degree where none of us want to really ask for help, but it's an important thing that we do. So with that little intro and lead, Jim, just a little bit about yourself. I know, a lot of people know Jim French is, but obviously a lifelong support, I would suggest, to the RHA, ex-chairman, etc., etc. Just a little bit about yourself. I've kind of done it there.
Okay, then briefly. Yes, I worked in logistics all my life, so a career over 50 years. And during that time, I'd always taken an involvement in the RHA back from the 1970s. And I was a director from 2012 up to 2019. So during that time, I did my stint as the national chairman and took on then the role of chairman of the Benevolent Fund.
Thanks, Jim. Kelly, over to yourself.
So I'm the charity coordinator for the Benevolent Fund, and I've been with the fund now for coming up to 2 years. Before the fund, I was a fundraiser, so I was fundraising for about 10 years before I joined the Benevolent Fund, so have a strong sort of charity background. And it feels great to be working on the fund and being able to bring that skill set and everything else to it.
Thanks, Kelly. So let's get down to the start of the story, if you like. So, Jim, what is the Benevolent Fund and when was it formed and why?
It was formed in 2000. It was directors on the RHA board then felt they needed a means in order to support members and members' employees and RHA staff perhaps, who had hit upon financial hardship and finding a way of supporting them. And those members agreed then to put some money into a fund and then support, as I say, employees or members that had come across financial hardship in effect.
Okay, so bringing it forward to 2026, so it's been established for 26 years, give or take. Is it still the same rules in terms of who it supports, or has it been broadened in line with where the industry has moved and changed over the years?
It has very much the same from the point of view of supporting members, staff and employees. But 4 years ago, we did change the constitution to enable us to support people that weren't necessarily RHA members but were involved in the road transport industry under exceptional circumstances. There was certain circumstances where we thought it would be good from the RHA's point of view to support the industry. And we understand and appreciate that we are using, in the main, members' subscriptions to the fund to perhaps support, on occasions, non-members. But it was under exceptional circumstances. For example, there's a Ukrainian driver that was murdered in Bermondsey back in, I think it was 2021, and we were asked, could we support? And because his company was not a member, then we were unable to. And we wanted to support the driver's wife in order to give some assistance in terms of returning the body to the Ukraine. So as a result of that, we changed the constitution to enable us to support people within the industry that weren't necessarily RHA members, but only in special circumstances. And we have a caveat really that if there are instances of that nature, then every trustee must support that initiative really to give assistance to somebody that isn't necessarily in the industry.
And that's a lovely little segue into me. It's second question around this. So the actual governance of the Benevolence Fund, because I was talking to some of the, only a couple of weeks ago about this actually. And as I was explaining to them, that the Benevolent Fund is governed and run totally separate to the RHA, and for obvious legal reasons, because it's a separate entity almost. So
Yes.
Just explain the governance structure around it, how many trustees there are, and how that's structured, how often you meet, etc., etc.
Yes, it is a registered charity. So we are answer to the Charity Commission, really, but means that we have separate finances to the RHA as such. There are currently 11 trustees, and they are made up of current directors of the RHA board and past directors of the RHA. And we try to have a regional representation. So in effect, we've got trustees from Scotland, from the north, from the southeast, Midlands and West, and we have one trustee from Wales.
Okay, that's very clear. So I mean, the key point is that it's registered charity and it's fairly separate from the RHA, but it's made up by people that understand the industry and therefore can apply a considered judgment on each individual case, which we're going to come on to in a second. So, and that's a lovely answer. No one of these segues, we're doing it very well this afternoon. So, who can apply, Kelly, question for you, who can apply for support? And typically what does that look like?
Okay, so it's mainly there for RHA members, so their employees and their dependents. So I think that sometimes gets missed. The fact that actually it's the employees' dependents can also apply. And as Jim explained, we do take on those non-member claims under very special circumstances. And the types of things it can help with, so it's pretty varied really. So, but to give you an example of some of the most common things it supports, I'd say it's financial support. So if you have been off work through injury or illness and you've, say, got behind on your rent, or you need a bit of help with utility bills or, say, food vouchers, that financial support is the most common cause that it supports. But it will also help with things like funeral care costs, white and brown goods, training. So if, for instance, you need to upskill or change what you're doing within the sector, then that's something that we can help you with. It can also help with essential home repairs as well. So it's pretty broad really, in terms of what we can help with. And I think, I always say to people that, when I'm talking about the fund, it doesn't really matter what it is you need help with. Always reach out and, put a claim in or ask for support, because I feel that there's not really anything that the trustees won't consider. So never be put off. If you're thinking about applying, we'll always, review that form of support, and the trustees will make a decision on whether that's something that, they want to help out with.
So again, that's a lovely link to you must be reading my questions. That's a lovely link to my next question. So how do I actually apply for that, and what sort of time scale sits around the application process?
So it's a really straightforward process. So I'm the kind of middleman really. So you'd send in an application form to me, or get in touch with me and I send you an application form, fill out the application form, which comes back to me. Then I will work with you to sort of build a claim. So it might be that there's a bit of supporting evidence that I need a bit of help with. So I will kind of, stay in close touch with you to help you every step of the way. Then once we've got the claim, as strong as it can be, that goes off to 3 trustees if it's an RHA, if you work for an RHA member. And I think it's a really quick turnaround. So, 1 week to 2 weeks, the maximum, I'd say maybe about a month, in terms of, from start to finish, the timeline. But, on average, it's about 2 weeks, I'd say. There might be a little bit of back and forth in terms of extra things that the trustee needs information around, or bits of supporting evidence. So as I say, I'm in close touch with you sort of every step of the way. And then once the trustees have reviewed the claim, which we say takes around 5 working days, if it's awarded, then, we'll administer a payment directly to whoever, we're paying, whether that's a landlord or a utility company, funeral director, whatnot. So, as I say, really straightforward turnaround. And if any questions or any support that anyone needs, they can just email the Benevolent Fund inbox, which is benevolentfund@rha.uk.net, for any questions or support needed.
Perfect, thanks Kelly. And again, just going, we've touched upon this, Jim, but just we'll go back to it again. It's just purely from talk about governance and oversight. So we've got 11 trustees, who including yourself as the chair. Are you one of the?
Yes, one of those.
Yeah, that's fine. So how? And again, this is, it's more of a subjective question than an objective one. So it must be quite a challenging job being a trustee, because how do you judge the claims when they come in? Is there a criteria? So how do you ensure, not fairness, because you're all fair-minded people, but how do you ensure that you can be happy that it's had a fair judgment by the committee to be accepted or not? Is there
So the process would be that once the claims come in and Kelly's happy that she's got all the information we need, then they go to 3 trustees and we circulate which trustees the claim goes to, and those 3 trustees then come to a decision as to whether we should support the claim and then how much. Okay. If it, on the rare occasion it's a claim from somebody outside of RHA membership, then it has to go to all trustees for agreement.
That's fine. In terms of the 3 trustees, are those picked randomly, or do you do it on a?
It's done on circulation, so
right, okay.
So we'll take 3 trustees and then another 3 for the next claim, and it's done like that really.
Okay. Well, again, it's a question for you both, but I'll stay with you, Jim, and then I'll ask you, Kelly, this one. So, what are some of the? I'll give you a clue on this one. So, I attended a conference last Tuesday, if last week was the bank holiday, and I turned up and we had our van there, the truck simulator, and there was this guy whizzing around on a mobility scooter, and it was somebody who actually, the mobility scooter had come from the Benevolent Fund. And having nearly run me over twice on it, not intentionally. It was trying to get hold of me to fag me for even though I said, well, it's actually nothing to do with me in that sense, but it was really nice it was just nice to see that, because obviously the person is a guy who won't mind mentioning, a guy called Peter McKenna, who you awarded the mobility. It's made such a difference to his life, and I think that's the important thing about this, that people sometimes forget. So as much as you can or can't say on this, what are some of the typical awards or some of the things that you've been able to grant funding for without naming names. So just so people can get a flavour for what
So
it
a
is.
mobility scooter, yes, we've done that. Probably not on enough occasions, but people that have applied for something like that, we've been keen because that makes a big difference to their life. And I remember that particular case, albeit that we obviously treat ill cases confidentially, and we don't, unless specifically requested by the individual, we don't obviously communicate about those. I guess one of the archetypal sort of cases that we tend to get might be a driver that might lose their license through ill health. And because of that, before they've been able to form a new career and find new employment, they've fallen behind with their rent.
Yeah.
So things like supporting people through rent payments or mortgage payments, council tax, things like that. Or in other cases, we may have helped people where particular circumstances have meant they need some household equipment, a washing machine or something like that, and we've supported people in ways like that.
Kelly, again, similar sort of question, but being relatively new to the RHA in comparison to Jim's tenure and mine, what impact do you think this fund is having across the sector, from what you see and feel, and some feedback that you'll get from some of the clients?
I think it's been really life-changing for some people. Just to carry on from what Jim was saying with an example from this year. We had a lady reach out, and her mum had a really serious stroke, and she was looking at rehabilitation classes for her mum to walk again, which was the only thing that was really getting her mum out of bed in the morning. That went to all trustees, it got signed off, and now, her mum's having these classes and she's walking again. And I think people kind of, obviously a lot of the time, it is, drivers, like you say, looking for help with say rent or, whatnot. But I think, sometimes it can really, be that thing that completely turns somebody's life around, that helping hand and that support that they didn't know was out there. So I think, just going back to what I was saying earlier, that it is this open fund that is there to help with anything that you really do need help with if you're at rock bottom. So, I think for a lot of people, it can be, pretty life-changing.
Jim, anything to add to that?
Yes, we can't always publicise some of the events, but from our perspective, seeing how we've helped people and supported them, it is quite satisfying and rewarding, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just going back to nearly being run over twice, it was nice to see him try to run me over, I know, seriously, and it was, I know the impact that's had on him, so it's just it's something that people should do, people that make up the industry. So going on to the actual RHA members who predominantly support the funding through everything, but also, whilst it's not a commercial entity, and it won't be, it's obviously important that we have the funds to generate to it. So looking, what else can RHA members do, or people do from a fundraising awareness perspective, to add coffers so we can give more money away and support more needy causes? So what sort of things are we looking at working on in the future around increasing potential contributions to the fund?
So we've got the Centurion scheme. So if you're looking at wanting to directly support the fund, you can join the Centurion scheme, so as an individual or a business, and that's £100 a year, which directly supports the fund. And then you're in for a chance of winning cash prizes each month. So there's a first prize is 125, second prize is 75, third prize is 50. And then in June, the top prize is £500. So that's a great way to support us, but also, like I say, have the chance of winning cash prizes every month. So you've got the Centurion scheme, you've got fundraising. So, the fundraising is relatively new to the fund. So we've always had the odd person fundraise, but we've actually got organisations now that have chosen us as their charity partner for the year. And I'd like to see a bit more of that, because I know that lots of RHA members fundraise each year for various charities. Why not fundraise for the Benevolent Fund? So add the Benevolent Fund into the mix, and actually do some fundraising that will directly support, the workers, of your organisation, the industry. And there's also partnerships as well. So we're seeing more partnerships coming in. So that can be sort of anything really, the partnerships. But yeah, obviously we would absolutely encourage everybody to, to consider supporting us more than, just the donation that we get each year from the RHA membership renewal.
Interestingly, I think there's a relevance to this, so bear with me for 2 minutes, otherwise we'll cut it out. So the RHA, as you're probably aware, is on 15th of July is launching its wellbeing charter. Oh yes, I'm very excited about this because I think it's, there's going to be 6 pillars that we're going to promote and target ourselves as a trade body to drive 1 million moments of improvement across the next 10 years, and that ranges from mental health to physical health, all the way through to connectivity and to leadership and resilience. So there's all those areas. So something, and I think you're coming to the launch, Jim. Something like that is a great opportunity to not have the Benevolent Fund sat alongside it, but certainly to promote the Benevolent Fund at the same time, because it's the first time that the RHA as a trade body, it's not a criticism, it's an evolution, this has pulled all of those pillars together. So things that affect your day-to-day well-being in this industry, we think the 6 pillars are the 6 main ones, but naturally, something like Benevolent Fund would sit alongside that from a support mechanism, potentially, when things got into a challenging situation. So, I mean, that is an example of what you just described, whereas, because there will be quite a bit of commercial sponsorship going on around that from a well-being perspective, and there's a great opportunity for us as a trade body to actually promote our Benevolent Fund at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's certainly, it's not really a question, it's more of an action for me that I've just given myself on the podcast, probably, which I will take away as an action. So my final question, because time has flown by, and we have been talking about this for 20 minutes, actually, and it's a real fascinating subject. If there is one message that you could give to the people listening today about the RHA Benevolent Fund, I'm going to ask you this question, what would that message be, Jim?
Okay, first of all, thanks to the members for their subscriptions, and we get donations from some of the specialist groups, and also fundraising from functions such as the Northern Dinner Dance and things like that. So a big thank you to the RHA membership for supporting us, and it enables us then, as I've said, to assist people that are suffering really financial hardship. And although the members might not always see that, from our perspective, it is very rewarding and satisfying to see how we've changed people's lives. The fact that we've got Kelly on board has helped us now being able to support more people. So last year we gave out £102,000 in 68 claims. So we've grown in terms of what we're able to do to support RHA members.
So we're talking not insignificant sums, which is important. I think that's really important. Kelly, same question for you.
I think mine is just if you're thinking of applying and you're in doubt, just to please reach out to me. So, the role I'm doing as charity coordinator is a relatively new role, but it just means that there is a voice at the end of the line. When you send an email in, it will be me that gets in touch with you and picks up the phone. So, just if there's any concerns or any questions you have about your application, please just get in touch, drop me an email, or like I say, pick up the phone, and just know that you will have that support every step of the way. And, with your claim. And I can also actually help, I can do the claim as well for you on your behalf, if you do need that extra bit of support as well.
Thanks, Kelly. I mean, I would just echo that, as I said at the beginning, that, people, if you're unsure, and you're in doubt, get in touch with Kelly. Go onto our website, pick up the details, because it's not a natural thing to do for people to ask for help, but everybody needs a little bit of help sometimes. So, Jim, thank you very much for this afternoon, and for taking the time to come speak to us, Kelly, and Q as well, and for the good work that you're both doing with the Benevolent Fund. And that was the latest episode of Roadway, and thank you for listening.